The history. What kind of history?
So, in Tyronza, where it was the birthplace of the Southern Kind of Farmers Museum, our headquarters. And,
I always get the home of Tina Turner. Where is the home of Tina Turner again? Yeah, I always hear that one whenever we're in a group of Delta stakeholders. I always hear the home of Tina Turner, and everyone gets real excited. What else? Let's get here one or two more. The grind in Memphis. I love it. One more?
We got a strong religious base. We had the first Catholic seminary west of the Mississippi and the birthplace of the Lutheran Church in the 30th century.
Wow. I did not know that. Learn something new every day. So what is it that we love about our communities? I'm not hearing this, well, I have a job and that's what makes my community unique. We have a couple of businesses, we have some restaurants. I collect a paycheck, I pay my taxes, I have a house, I have an apartment. What do we love about our communities? What is it?
I can walk to my farmer's market.
You can walk to your farmer's market. What else? More industrial jobs than you have households. What else? What do you love about your community?
I love the fact that I have a driveway. I'm from the north.
Hey, there's nothing better than a driveway. We take those things for granted. In fact, when I was in Louisiana, I had that driveway and I had that yard. And then I take my poor dog to DC and she's like, what the heck happened? We're living in a room that's as big as our bathroom was. I'm like, oh, Bella, you'll be okay. Let's hear one or two more.
The heart of the people.
The heart of the people. I'm going to end with that one then. So this is what I knew you guys were going to be referring to. These are the things that you guys think about. You think about that sense of community, it's the quality of place, and it's your quality of life. Again, I'm going to go back to, you didn't say, well, I love that I have a job here, I love that I have a house here, although someone loves their driveways. You don't say, I love that I pay my taxes here. Okay, it's all of these things. It's that sense of community and it's that place. So why is DRA here talking about creative placemaking? Does anyone know? Who's very, very familiar with DRA? Rebecca's already raising her hand.
Well, I'm just going to take a step and by saying the things that I've seen all over the Delta region is that human beings have taken their creative nature and turned themselves around in many areas of the Delta already without any help or aid, because it's what they had to go to. They had to reach inside themselves and find what, for instance, Clarksville and the Blues. That's where you meet from all over the world. That is creative placemaking. And they did it without putting a name. There was no name. Nobody knew what creative placemaking was.
So basically what Rebecca's saying is that we've actually been doing this all along because we had to. It's for that self-sustainability. It's for the rural way of life to continue. We have to do it ourselves, and we have the history. Okay, we have the assets, we have the culture, we have the food, we have the music, we have everything here, and we just need to build on that. Ryan, were you going to say something?
Playing off of what Rebecca said, and one of the speakers yesterday referenced resiliency, and it wasn't just resiliency after, a disaster or something negative, but resiliency of the community.
The resiliency of the community. It's perfect. And I don't know if you guys remember when I was introducing these workshops, I said 3 things. We want to make our communities more competitive, more resilient. Okay, 2 things. So I said 3 things, and I don't even remember the last one. But regardless, I said more resilient, more creative. Okay, because we can build on that. So when we look at what DRA funds, we look at a lot of these things, and you see basic public infrastructure, you see transportation infrastructure, small business and entrepreneurship, workforce development, healthcare, and you see disaster recovery and resiliency, and what? do all of these things have in common with creative placemaking? And I think the question is actually turned around. It's what does creative placemaking have to do with all of these things? And I think Liz touched on that, and Michelle touched on that these are actually all interconnected. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I'm going to go into our statute. Congress finds that the lower Mississippi River region, though rich in natural and human resources, lags behind the rest of the United States in economic growth and prosperity. Does anyone disagree? I didn't think so. A couple other things. Congress finds a lot of things, by the way, so I put Congress also finds that. A concerted and coordinated effort among federal, state, and local agencies, the private sector, and nonprofit groups is needed if the region is to achieve its full potential for economic development. We cannot work in silos. And in our region, I think we have to be a bit more creative than the more urban areas. But I love what it says here, that the Mississippi River region is rich in natural and human resources. If Congress can acknowledge that, I think we all in this room can also acknowledge that we have something going on here in this region. The International Economic Development Council also agrees, and they just published this piece, I guess this month. The leading economic development organization in the world is saying that place matters. Quality of place matters. And I love what they say in the report where they say, instead of differentiating themselves primarily by transportation access, low cost, proximity to natural resources, or other traditional competitive advantages, many communities today are attracting multi-generational talent by becoming desirable places to live. So it's that livability factor. We need that here in rural America. Again, it goes back to this is the only way the rural way of life will survive, and that's the reason why DRA is here. You can also see the economic impact of the arts and culture, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but you see in 2014 the arts and cultural sectors contributed more than $729 billion, or 4.2% to the economy. And it's growing. It's growing every single year. GDP grew by more than 35% between 98 and 2014 in these sectors. The arts and cultural goods and services in 2014, that spending reached $1.1 trillion. And employment increased by 3.8%. That's more than 1 million jobs. But I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, but you're going to go over the NOFA here. We're here to get that funding. So I love this scene in the movie, and Chuck does a really great impression, so I'm going to have him do it again. What happens in this part?
Show me the money!
Thank you. So we're going to go over this NOFA, and what you'll see on your tables, you'll see the NOFA, and you'll also see the notice of intent to apply. We're going to pay attention to the NOFA right now, and then we'll go over the notice of intent to apply, which is actually a pretty simple document for you to turn in when you decide you want to do this. So let's look at some important dates here. I'll have this slide up twice, but this is also in the NOFA that you have at your table. Notice of intent to apply is due Friday, July 21st by 5 p.m. If you turn it in at 6 p.m., I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to throw it away. I'm just joking. Just get it to me by that day if you can. Applications are due Monday, July 31st. People are wondering, why are you waiting so long for that notice of intent to apply? And we want to get through all these workshops before we ask people to decide if they want to apply to this NOFA. So those are due Monday, July 31st. Awards will be made sometime in September 2017. So I want to go over just the purpose, and we've already kind of discussed this, but DRA sees its role in creative placemaking to enhance the quality of place and quality of life in Delta communities, but we're also looking at the formation of cross-sector partnerships, because we're looking at combining the arts sector with the non-art sectors, and that's the public and private sectors there. We want to spur innovation and entrepreneurship, but we also want to strategically integrate the arts and culture into what we do to stimulate economic growth, community development, and rural prosperity. So I'm going to go over the background of this program very quickly. We have 3 phases here. The first one is that we train DRA staff in how to do creative placemaking. That does not mean that we are experts in creative placemaking. However, we had folks like Our Place Springboard for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Rural Policy Research Institute come down to speak to us in Clarksdale, Mississippi, to say, hey, this is what you have going on, this is why you guys should be doing this is how you can help the folks in your region. We did that in February of this year, and then we thought, okay, if we want to build out this initiative, we want to help the folks in our region do these types of projects, and to incorporate these great placemaking efforts into their community development. What we need to do is we need to host workshops, and that's why we're here today. To provide you with that technical assistance that you need, to go over the NOFA, to connect you to additional resources to do this work. And then we have the investment program. Okay, and that's why we're here. The total program funding is $309,000. It's not much, but we are a small but mighty agency, and we're going to do the great work in your communities. So the award ceiling is $30,000, and what you'll see is the award floor I have here is $0. Please don't apply for $0. Just call me and say hello. You don't need to submit an application to do that. Okay, but what I'm trying to show here is that, yes, we are offering up to $30,000, but please do not apply for $30,000 if you don't need $30,000. We want to see quality projects. If a quality project means you only need $5,000, I want to see that application come in instead of the $30,000 and you force a project into your community. We are looking for sustainable projects. So here are the highlights. Successful applicants will receive up to $30,000 of the seed investment. Note, this is a seed investment. Up to 50 hours of technical assistance. And people say, well, what does that technical assistance mean? That might mean we bring in people into your community to help you carry out these projects. And that might not mean that you have someone coming into your community for 24 months, but they're also a call away or an email away. Okay, and that's what we are going to contribute to these. All these investments require a non-federal match of at least 1-to-1. Okay, that will be a combination of cash and in kind or just cash, and we'll go over that shortly. But this is a 24-month project cycle beginning this September, and that will end September 2019. I want you to take this slide with a grain of salt, because these are the funding priorities that Congress says we have to focus on. Basic public infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, business development, and workforce development. Okay, again, I want you to, when you look at this in the NOFA, I want you to think this is a formality, okay? Because ultimately, many of these projects are going to impact one or more of these. You will end up advancing one or more of these somehow. I want you to look more closely at this. By investing in one or more of DRA's funding priorities, this program seeks to do a few things. We want to revitalize our Delta downtowns and main streets. We want to support job creation and innovation. We want to promote diversity and inclusiveness of voices, and we want to align the non-art sectors with the art sectors. This is the performance measurement, and if you note, a lot of these titles, I should have mentioned this before, I'm actually following the order of the NOFA. So if you wanted to follow along, you'll obviously see more detail in the NOFA. But these projects will begin on September 1st of this year or sometime thereafter within the month. Again, this is a 24-month project cycle. And what I have here is a note that we also have in the NOFA, and that is that applicants should allow sufficient time for asset mapping, information of partnerships, planning, implementation, but also notice project completion and closeout. We want these to be sustainable projects. We don't want just a one-off project that you're going to kind of put some effort in and then you're going to leave it and then that money goes wasted. Okay, obviously these are taxpayer dollars. We want to take care of those taxpayer dollars, but we also want to see your priorities being advanced in your communities. Again, some of this is a bit repetitive, but if you see the seed investments, again, require a non-federal match of at least 1-to-1, cash or a combination of cash and in kind. Budget proposals may include matching funds not yet committed. I need to see at least a letter of support, although it's ideal that you have these funds committed. I really don't want to see you come in and say, well, so I want $30,000, but I have $1 million that somebody has told me they're going to give me one day. I'm going to say, yeah, me too. We have the same friend. Okay, so we're going to take a thorough look at this, but see, we got cash and we have in kind. Oh my gosh, what is that? I want us to be a bit creative when we think about in-kind, and I'm not going to be able to give you every type of in-kind that you can use on your application as matching funds. Who's pretty familiar with what in-kind is and how you can creatively use in-kind on an application? I bet Greg's a pro at it. If you don't know Greg, he's a good guy to know. He's at the OCA. So I just have a few things listed here. Personnel time, buildings, use of land, equipment and supplies, facilities, goods or services, and I put et cetera here because I think when we start to build out these projects, I'll be able to better answer specific questions like, hey, can I use this as in-kind? And we'll have Tiffany also, who's our regional development officer, and we'll have DRA staff floating around to answer those types of questions. And I'll do a little Q&A after this. But let's look at who's eligible, and I want to explain why. When we look at who's eligible on these applications, we have two primary partners. We have the primary applicant, who is the local government entity, and then we have the primary partner, and that is the nonprofit entity. In the NOFA, we have one of two primary entities must be a cultural organization, historical entity, or museum. These are our arts or design folks. They must be the partner. They cannot be the recipient of the funds. We want to change the narrative in rural America. We want these funds going to the local government entity, and we don't want the local government entity to just put in their letter of support saying, yeah, we support this. We want them actually getting behind this, and we want them working with that nonprofit entity to actually see these projects out, okay? I've had a question about, why can't a local development district apply for this? Because we think this change needs to happen at the local level, and that's very, very important to the reasoning behind this initiative. Obviously, applicants must reside in the 252 counties and parishes of the DRA region. I'm not going to name those off. If you don't think that's you, we do have a wonderful map room that I think Spencer Lucker named on our website because he said it's trendy. It's called the map room, and it shows all of our counties and parishes. If you have a question, I'll be able to help you with that. All right, so when we look at the primary applicant as a local government entity, in the NOFA we define it as a county parish, city, town, village, or federally recognized tribal government. I also have the NOFA here that it says local arts agencies or other departments, agencies, or entities within an eligible local government entity, such as like a Main Street program, may submit an application on behalf of the primary applicant. That gets a little tricky. If that's you, or you think that's you, we can have a conversation. However, we want this to be, again, the local government entity putting in the application. And I also want you to think about this. Just because the local government entity has to submit the application, they have to put their name on it, doesn't mean if you're the nonprofit entity that you cannot help them put that application together. Okay, that's important. If you want to drive it, that's fine, but they need to have their name as the lead applicant. These are the local government entities that do not qualify as local government entities, and I'm not going to read these out to you. Can everyone see these? Again, we don't want to go through the state, and we're not going through universities because we want to go through the localities. The nonprofit entity, you need to be a tax-exempt 501c3. We need to confirm at least 3 years of programming. We're just trying to see if you're stable financially and programmatically. And again, remember, one of these two entities must be that arts or cultural organization. We also want multiple partners. We know that you can't do this alone. We know that the government can't do this alone. We know that the nonprofit cannot do this alone. So we want to see a lot of different people here, and that's why we're here. We want to be inclusive of all those voices. We want to put our tables together. We want to have everyone a seat at the table. So that includes all sorts of arts organizations and artists. That's for-profit businesses, councils of government. That's community organizations. Even get your state involved. Academic institutions, and community planners. This is what I really, really want you to focus on. And again, when I showed you those funding priorities that DRA has, the transportation infrastructure, the basic public infrastructure, workforce development, and business development, again, I want you to kind of scratch that. You're going to eventually advance those with your projects. But I want you to look at this, and I believe, I would like to find in the notebook just so you guys can all see that in case you can't see the screen. I believe this is on page 7 and 8, but primarily on page 8 of the NOFA. These are very, very general. So if you're to look at our NOFA and you think, wow, this is really rigid if we're supposed to be advancing the funding priorities of basic public infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and so on, I don't think we can do that. I think you can utilize the arts and culture as a catalyst to revitalize downtowns and main streets. It's general for a reason. It's vague for a reason. We know that we're going to get a variety of projects. So I want you to look at the 6 items that we have here. Cultural asset mapping, community visioning, and community design dialogues. And that basically means we will send somebody into your community and we're going to help you on this journey, to start your journey, to get the right people at the table. And that's a different type of project than somebody who wants to implement a creative approach that addresses community challenges or economic and community development priorities. That might mean you're way on your way here. Transformation of a perceived liability into a community asset through the arts and culture. How many of you have those buildings or that blight in your community and you think, gosh, if that was just a refurbished or a redeveloped storefront, our community would be totally different. And I think we all have that. Everywhere. It's everywhere. Development of an arts or cultural business incubator or apprenticeship program, that's getting into the small business development and entrepreneurship side, but it's also getting into workforce development. And I'll show you one example that's a pretty creative project that we have going on in our region. Integrating the arts and culture and the redevelopment and reuse of public spaces, again, very, very general. You want a farmer's market and you want to build a pavilion and you want to use it as a community gathering space, great. Let's do that. But unfortunately, you guys missed out on Dr. John Sutherland, who talks about brownfields redevelopment, because remember, this can be part of a much greater project. This doesn't just have to be, okay, let's think about one project that we can do. I think we can submit this application in. This can be part of a much bigger picture if you want it to be. I wanted to show you Meraki Roasting Company. And this is actually located in Clarksdale, Mississippi. It was started by the Griot Youth Arts Program, and they're a nonprofit there. It's an arts and cultural organization. And what they've been doing since 2011 is actually bringing in middle school and high school students in the Clarksdale area to engage with the arts, to learn different types of mediums. They provided mentorship and guidance to these kids who maybe want to go to college, who maybe don't want to go to college, and to provide them with opportunities that they might not have at home or elsewhere. But then they decided, hey, you know what? Let's open up a coffee shop. A coffee shop in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I mean, there are only so many people in Clarksdale, Mississippi that want a cup of coffee. That's what I thought initially when I read about it. And I thought, you know, you got Yazoo Pass, you're going to be competing against each other. But holy cow, this thing is an awesome building. I walked into it and I thought, this is not in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I'm back in DC, or I'm in New York, or I'm in Vegas, or I'm in a much larger city. And when I walked in and I spoke to Callie Nolan and Ben Lewis, who were really at the center of this project, and they've been carrying it out on the ground. This is Ben actually in a photo with these kids, and what they have done with this coffee place is they didn't build the coffee place just to sell coffee and just to roast coffee. When I think of Clarksdale, I don't think of people roasting coffee, or pour-overs, or drip coffee. I don't think of that. What they did is they designed a model where they're training kids to run a cash register, roasting coffee, bagging coffee, serving coffee, making coffee, and they're teaching them the soft skills that they need to be successful in a job. What we, I've connected with Callie, and what we've tried to do is to build that out, and I thought, Callie, this is bigger than what you think it is. This can be an apprenticeship program or a pre-apprenticeship program. Connect with other employers in your region. It doesn't matter what sector it is, healthcare, manufacturing, you name it. You bring in opportunity youth, you train them, you provide them with mentorship, they learn how to roast coffee, and then they go out and you connect them with an apprenticeship or an internship in another company of their interest. The cool thing about Meraki is that, this is Clarksdale, Mississippi. They are also selling local goods, whether it be the kids make them or others in the community are making them. They're selling all sorts of local products too. And they have their local employers looking, nodding their head thinking, this is what I want. I will hire that kid. He knows how to get to work on time. He knows how to dress. She knows how to get to work on time, she knows how to dress, I'm gonna bring her in. I just need people with very basic soft skills and I will teach them the rest. So now this thing has exploded. But I also want to bring this up, the community visioning and asset mapping. Again, these are my only two examples because I want you to also know that if you are at the beginning of your journey, it's okay. We're gonna be here to work with you on that journey. We're gonna have someone come into your community and we're gonna map out what you wanna do, the assets that you have, and your overall community vision and how we can pursue that. Submission guidelines, give us a map and photos, and we'll actually be able to pin it in our application, but we want some photos of where these activities are actually gonna take place. Think about somebody who has never been in your community and show us those photos. We wanna see what's actually gonna happen here. 3 to 5 letters of support, no more than 5 letters of support. We want these to be strong, okay? We don't just want, I don't want a letter from Billy Bow and he says, this is a really awesome project, okay? I want these to be really strong letters of support. The rest of these are formalities for the nonprofit that will be applying. We just want to make sure you're financially stable and able to take on this project. These are really wordy slides, and I don't want to go through all of them, but this is what we will be evaluating these projects on. Does it address the specific stated goals of this program? Do we indicate the commitment of both partners? Do you have the capacity to take on this project? Again, if it's a $5,000 project, don't make it a $30,000 project, especially if we know by reading your application that you might not have the capacity to do it. It's okay. Small wins are huge here. Do you have the cultural art design organizations on board, and will they be able to complete the project with the local government? We want to know the vision, the outcomes. Does this actually enhance the quality of life and quality of place in your communities? Does it also address the priorities of that local government, of your municipality? Does it address the needs of underserved populations where appropriate? Again, is it feasible? Is it appropriately funded, and will it have on-time completion? And then we're also looking at long-term sustainability, and we want to know what your evaluation metrics are and how you'll document those. Okay, we want to see these projects through. Here are some of the stages that we have in the review process. If you need an informational session, you think, you're at this event, maybe you need a little bit more information, I'm happy to provide that to you, and so is the rest of the DRA staff. But I want to go through how we're actually reviewing these applications. We're gonna do a partner review. So with the partners that we've mentioned in the room, we're gonna ask them, hopefully you guys know this, if you don't know this, it's okay. We're going to ask for volunteers, subject matter experts, to look through our applications, score them based on the criteria, and quite frankly, we're going to have a pretty simple score sheet. We're not going to overcomplicate this thing. But we want to make sure that these projects are feasible and that they're ready to be funded. We're also going to have a clarification period. It will be brief, but this is where we look at these applications and we think, okay, this might be a really awesome project if, ... We can call you, say, hey, fix this, or we can't fund this, but we can fund that. Okay, that's the clarification period. We're trying to help you be successful. We'll do our own DRA internal review, and we'll go through a risk assessment evaluation. Again, that's just to make sure you do have the capacity, you can take this on, you're financially stable to do this. If you go to our webpage, I don't know how many of you actually found these workshops on our website, but we do have a webpage, dra.gov/creative placemaking, and that's where you can download this notice of intent to apply. If you lose this, it is okay, but I guess I should briefly go over that notice of intent to apply. At the moment, all we're looking at here, you're basically checking a bunch of boxes to make sure you're actually a real person, you're not a robot. I'm just joking because it's paper, so it doesn't actually do that. But we just want to make sure you have that primary applicant, you're eligible, you have the primary partner, who you folks are, and a very brief description of what that project is, the population that it'll be affecting, and where you're located. That's it. Very, very simple. Submit that. If you change your project, it's okay. If you change your primary partner and your primary applicant, then you need to let me know. But don't think that this is concrete. Okay? We just need to submit that. How many of you are familiar with our funding portal? You've submitted a CDAP application. Okay, we have a handful. It's not too complicated, okay? It is on our website. It is funding.dra.gov. That is in the NOFA. What you're gonna have to do is create an account, and then the application will walk you through everything, all right? It's not, I guess what I could do, I was gonna say it's not too hard to find, but I'll show you if you guys would like me to get on the website and sign into my account. Again, I just want to ask you to please review the criteria in the NOFA before you submit your application. Make sure you answer all of those questions thoroughly in the application. When I was in graduate school, I remember we still had some students who would say, okay, so how long does this paper actually have to be? Just answer the question. My instructors would always say, just answer the question. That's all we need, okay? If you answer it thoroughly, then you're gonna have a solid application. Again, these are your important dates. If you'd like to take a photo, but don't worry, they're all on your website. You're not gonna have to dig for them. And contact information. I'm happy to help with your questions. If you have tried to reach out to me this week, I apologize if I have not gotten back to you. We've been all over the Delta, but I will be getting back to you folks. And again, I'm happy to talk you through this on the phone if you have a specific project, and we'll be going over all of that today. But any general questions right now?
So we would do the intent to apply, and the actual grant application would be submitted all online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the notice of intent to apply, you can download this on our website on that webpage, dra.gov/creative placemaking. You fill it out, you scan it, and you email it to me. My email is all over that webpage, so feel free to email me that, and if someone else gets it, they'll end up forwarding it to me. Any other general questions? Oh man, who should go first? You go first.
Question about the primary partner is going to be a nonprofit. So I have a county judge wanting to turn a really old jail, stable building, it looks great. He wants to turn that into a museum. Can you give me an example of, there's not just a lot of cultural and design private nonprofits in Arkansas City, Arkansas. I'm trying to figure out where we can go.
What about in the county?
Well, he actually did start this museum in Suzuki, and it's the Japanese American Internment Camp. So he's got some experience there. So I'm sure he can find some people to help. I'm just worried about finding a private nonprofit that's going to be able to supply you with all the financial documents and stuff like that. I just want to see if you can maybe give some examples of that. I feel like that may be something a lot of people may find.
Especially if it's a new project.
Wouldn't that fall under Preserve Arkansas? Preserve Arkansas? They're statewide.
Statewide preservation group, that could probably assist you with the, local.
The Secretary of State in Arkansas lists all the nonprofits per county, per city.
Yeah, so I just don't know the county, so unfortunately I just couldn't connect you to somebody there, but I would get really creative about what organization that you use. And again, it's not like, if they can impact your project in any way and they have some type of influence on what happens and they're helping you elevate that, that's what we're talking about. You don't need somebody who's actually already, say, you want to start this museum, but maybe it's a historic organization within the county. Maybe they don't have a museum going on, but they have a lot of that intellectual capital that you really need to get this off the ground.
It's not a massive project money-wise either. It's just building managers and directors. So it's not like we'd be leaning on them heavily to help us out. Just kind of formality type of it.
Right, and when we get in these small group discussions, we can kind of brainstorm that, and we can think about maybe who in that area would be able to help you guys and partner on that.
The IRS changed their valuations on the in-kind thing when it comes to services about 3-4 years ago, which impacted a lot of nonprofits on how they write off or do those in-kind. How does that affect this program from a valuation for a for-profit company who may come in and do in-kind? Do you have any experience with that?
Unfortunately, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Hey Bevan, can I steal you? He has a good question, but I don't think I can answer it.
Which question?
Oh, so the IRS about 3 or 4 years ago changed the valuations on in-kind services, which affected quite a bit of how nonprofits structure in kind. How does that, I mean, when you look at the valuation of in-kind and the value, the one-to-one value, how do you calculate that, given the fact that there's an IRS determination versus other determinations of value?
I would stick with what the IRS determination is.
Because they gutted value is the point, so the one-to-one doesn't contribute as much on a valuation anymore as it used to. So, I didn't know if you guys got into that when you're trying to value out the one-to-one match. If you ask for 10, you're like, oh, this lawyer is giving me 5,000. Well, it's actually, according to the IRS, not valued at 5,000. It's valued at 250 or whatever. And if that affects a federal application.
I don't know that we ever actually looked at that or held that, but Ted Connell, who is DRA's general counsel, can help with that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that's our GC question.
Okay.
Any others?
Is it likely to be a second round of funding next year or this year?
If Congress says that we still exist and the federal co-chairman at the time decides that this is what they want to do, then perhaps. I'm not sure. I can't dictate the funding priorities of the next federal co-chairman if that is the case, or if Congress does appropriate its dollars. That's kind of where we're at right now, unfortunately. So this is a pilot program. It might stay a pilot and never exist again, or it might be so successful that it does exist. I wish I could give you a better answer though.
Alex, is there a but-for requirement about this money, the project doesn't happen, we have to show evidence of that?
I would say you would want to include that in your application, because it would actually make it a strong proposal, and we'll see that the need is great. But I don't think you need to hammer on that throughout your application and only focus on that.
I'm looking on page 8, and I think I know the answer, but I just want a clarification. Under item C, items not funded, one project that we're talking about, is in partnership with the school. However, the school is not the partner entity. That's been a program for the creative place-making program, occur at a school.
Right, we're just not funding it. So it says, are you looking at where it says individual elementary or secondary schools? We can have the programming funded within the school, but we can't fund the school directly to implement that programming.
Okay, and so then my, second question is, may cities apply for more than one?
Great question. And I will have a FAQ going up on our website that will have a lot of these. We really needed to hear a lot of your questions before we did that. But the city or the county, okay, can submit up to 2 in partnership with a nonprofit entity. So that means the city of X can apply for 2 with their partners, but the county X can also apply for 2. Does that make sense?
How does that apply to universities?
How does it apply to universities?
In terms of like asking for resources for specific programs or projects?
So unfortunately with this program, I mean, we cannot, we're not, universities cannot be the recipient of funds. So as far as like, if a university were to be a partner, so if you were in the, I mean, you would be part of the like external partners and you couldn't be the primary partner because we're doing something a little bit different with this program. So I think I need a little more clarification on that question. Do you have, I mean, I'm just trying, I want to best answer your question, but I don't.
It's a project that's being developed, or it is developed, it's being operated within the university. That also reaches out to other nonprofit organizations. I'm just trying to figure out what
I mean, if the university is part of the project to advance it because they're part of that larger partnership group, unfortunately, again, like we can't, you can be a part of the project, you're just not gonna be the recipient of funds, and you might not be, you know, your name's not gonna be on the application. That's, I mean.
I can help the applicants.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So following up on what that gentleman over there was talking about, you want the money to go directly to the community when possible, like the city or the county, correct?
Yes.
So when
In fact, it can only go to this, I mean, it has to go to the local government entity.
Oh, yeah.
Are you saying like out of the eligible local government entities that can apply?
Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier that like an entity like a civic club may perhaps could apply on behalf of the city to receive the funds. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But so going back to the nonprofit, how much of impact is, you know, all their information going to have on the application, since they're in most cases not going to actually receive the money? Does that make sense?
Most often, they're gonna be the drivers behind these projects.
Okay.
And again, like, this is just how do we change the narrative? Are we actually giving these folks a seat at the table with the local government entities so that they can align their efforts? So even if they're the drivers of the project and they're not receiving the funds, they're basically indirectly receiving those funds and they're advancing their priorities that way.
Okay.
Any other general questions? And I promise I'm not leaving after this. When we facilitate these small group discussions, I'll be able to listen to your individual project questions and best answer those. It's kind of hard to do that in a larger group scenario here, but any other general questions? Yes.
Okay, so since you're going through the funding portal, are these projects going to be through your local planning districts? And is there admin costs that actually need to be built into the application?
The local develop, and I touched on this briefly, but if you're not familiar with our other investment programs, the local development district administers our funds for DRA. The local development district will not be receiving the administrative fees for these applications, although we have a lot of LEDs who are very interested in the program and will, you know, want to obviously help the community. But this is not something where you have to build in those admin fees for the LEDs. If you'd like, I guess.
Do they have to submit the application, or can the primary person?
No, the local government entity is the one that's submitting the application. It'll ask for where your LED, which location or which LED is closest to your location, but they don't have to submit.
Another dumb question. Can someone else submit the application on behalf of the lead organization with them still being the lead organization? Does that make sense? Like if I'm writing a grant for a community, can I submit it on their behalf? Or does someone physically
need to submit
Okay.
the application. You can write the entire application if you're working with them.
Okay.
But they will have to submit the application.
Huh? Hopefully it's food.
That would have to be included. Yeah, but so that, are you saying the admin fees are already built in?
On the website, it asks for, on the CDAP portal, yes.
Oh, yes, it is built in. I'm gonna actually have to get someone to change that for these types of applications. In the portal, and I did not bring it up, it's gonna ask you which program you're applying for. When I say Delta Creative Placemaking Initiative, I want you to think DCPI. If you're looking at CDAP, or it says SIF, or it says PWEA, and all these other acronyms, that's not you. We are the Delta Creative Placemaking Initiative, that's DCPI, so a note to make, and that's something that I will include in the FAQ that we have on the website. Check, I think for, again, like I said, I'll be floating around the room, so please ask questions.
Thanks. Several folks have asked. All of the PowerPoints will be available to you, everyone here. If you would not like that to occur, you need to see Alex. Secondly, there's a sign-up sheet up here for this event. We had some folks just walk in if you'd sign up so we can keep the community together. Okay, the art form now is to break into small groups. Just a general show of hands. How many of you already have a fairly firm idea of what you might consider submitting? A fairly firm idea right now. How many of